Hey guys, and welcome to Ellechat. I'm so excited to have you guys joining in tonight. For those of you who are joining into Ellechat for the first time, this is a weekly webinar. It's hosted on Thursday nights at the moment, but we're going to change it over starting next week to 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. So that's 12 p.m. on the West Coast. And for those of you who are in the UK, that'll be a little bit better for you guys. It'll be around 8 o'clock. But I just jump on. It's an informal chat each week. I've been having guests on lately, which has been really fun. And we talk about topics in creative entrepreneurship. So business, blogging, and design is normally what we cover. And today we're going to be talking about Skillshare and Creative Market. So for those of you who sell goods and or teach courses and you're looking for a way to reach a wider audience, these are great options for you. And while I don't use them at the moment, I be really helpful to bring on an expert, Jenn Coyle from Hello Brio. She's an illustrator, letterer, and pattern designer. And she's used both of these platforms for some time now. So everyone say hello to Jenn. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Lauren.
Yes. So for those who may not know you, and I would love to know this too, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what exactly you do and how you started Hello Brio?
Sure. So I actually have a degree in interior design, and when I graduated, the market crashed. I ended up working in fundraising data, and that's when I really started blogging. And when I was blogging, I was getting my start in designing and developing WordPress sites. So that's really kind of how I had my creative outlet. And so from there, it's been kind of a whirlwind, but I got into design more, and I got into graphic design resources, and that's where I am today.
That's awesome. I don't think I even knew that about interior design, but that's
Yeah, it's so random, I feel like.
yeah. So tell me more about your business. What does it look like? What do you do?
So right now I'm teaching some courses on Skillshare. I also teach some one independent class on my website. I sell an ebook on brush lettering, and I create products and resources for graphic designers that I sell on Creative Market and on my site.
Awesome. And you just started a new venture too. Can you
I
tell us about
did. Yeah, I started a membership service on my site. I'm really excited about it. It's called Briolets. So I'm going to be moving all of my more technical and in-depth tutorials onto that platform, as well as some fun resources to download every month, like exclusive fonts and other graphic design resources. So I really wanted to have a place to gather all the tutorials that were becoming really popular for like moving from your art from paper to digital media so that artists can learn how to do that.
Awesome. So as you started developing these resources for your business, you moved into Skillshare and Creative Market, and we're going to talk about the two, but we're going to start with Skillshare. So for those who might be unfamiliar with what Skillshare is, could you tell us a little bit more about it and even how you got started on it?
Sure. So Skillshare is an online learning platform. It's a really big platform. It's growing very quickly. There are tons of teachers on there, thousands, I think, at this point. And you can basically hop on as a teacher and teach anything you want. And that's the platform's really flexible. And because there are so many members, you have a really wide reach for your audience or potential audience. And so then people pay a very low monthly premium. I think it's $10 a month. And they can enroll in any of those classes if they want to. They range from like design to photography to even culinary classes now. They have so much stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when you got started with Skillshare, what was your first class and what was kind of your thinking behind getting started with it?
I got really lucky. Skillshare actually reached out to me. They have a really awesome teacher program and teacher help program. So it was because of something I posted on Dribbble, which is a graphic design platform for your portfolio. One of the teacher helpers reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in teaching a course on how you made X, Y, and Z? It was just like a cute little doodly robot set. So I actually worked with her, and we came up with the idea for my first class, which really took off. It was how to create your own hand-drawn font. So that course got pretty popular pretty quickly, and then I was really shocked to see the level of engagement and the enrollments that were coming in. So that was really exciting.
That's awesome. So when you started that class, about how long was the class? How long did it take you to develop from when they contacted you to when you put it up?
Sure. So when I got started with Skillshare, I was still working full time, and I had actually just started a new job, so it was a little bit of an adjustment. So I think in total, between drafting the class, outlining it, recording and editing all the video, because you do all that yourself unless you work with a company that does it for you, I believe it took me about a month, but that was only on evenings and weekends. But really, when it came down to it, recording and editing the entire class, I think, just took a long weekend at this point. It was about a year ago that I did the first class.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, which is great encouragement to those of you who are part-time right now doing your creative work on the side and are hoping to move to full-time. Here's an example of how you can create a simple course on a topic and use Skillshare to host it. So were there any fees up front for you for hosting the course, or what did it look like to get it on Skillshare? Was there an approval process?
No, there's no approval process. What's great about Skillshare is that you can hop on and really, with very little investment, you can see, A, if you even like teaching, B, if you enjoy the platform and what kind of engagement you're going to get. I believe with Skillshare, in order for your class to take off and be considered an official class, it has to get at least 25 enrollments. So depending on the audience you have or the topic that you're posting about, like, that'll help you just see whether or not it's for you. So that's what's really great about Skillshare, is that you don't have to have any upfront costs, and really it's just the time that you might put in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you go about, does Skillshare promote your courses for you, or how do you get those initial 25 people to purchase your course or watch it, I guess, since it's a membership site?
Sure. So what happens, just real quick, with the enrollments is that basically people will see your class based on the topics that they're interested in or that they choose that they're interested in. So it'll show up on a What's New page or a trending page. And when you publish your class, basically the first 2 weeks are the most important for your class. That's going to give it a higher chance to show up on the trending page for the algorithms. So you want to make sure that you're asking for student participation, which means having students upload projects and enroll. You can also give away some free enrollments to help boost your numbers in the first couple of weeks. So there are a lot of different strategies that Skillshare provides to get your class higher ranking and so that it kind of starts trending.
Yeah. So because people too aren't purchasing your course in particular, they are watching it since it's part of that membership. How do you, as the teacher of the course, get paid?
Yeah, sure. So you get paid per enrollment, and it's actually pretty low. It's about $1 to $2 per enrollment. But what that does is allows you to just see what kind of engagement you're going to get, and it also helps you see the buy-in for the topic that you are teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it might even, is there like a time limit for your course too? Like you have to have at least 5 minutes or something of content, or are the possibilities kind of endless there?
Yeah, they're actually experimenting with shorter classes, but you have to have at least 10 minutes of content. So I believe my first class was, I want to say, just under an hour or a little bit over an hour. But they're actually starting to recommend shorter format classes, which means that for new teachers, there's even less of an investment, and you can just teach something really fun and fast and project oriented. So you want to say, like, here's how to make X in a weekend, and people are really going to sign up for that, because when you think about it, that's what your audience may or may not have time for anyway. Just something really fun and quick to do over a couple of days.
That's awesome. So tell me about your first course and kind of how many people may have joined in or what you learned from it. Have you done classes since that first course that they contacted you about?
Sure. So the first course was about how to create your own hand-drawn font. It was really fun to make because they really help you break down the process. So you spend the first little bit outlining the class and getting it prepared. And then from there, you just kind of publish it and watch it go live, and you watch the enrollments come in. And so that's really exciting. So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So when you went to host the course, so you initially try to get those 25 people in so that your course will continue to stay up.
Sure.
But what did you do after that? Is the course still up? Like, have you made any edits to it, or have you started other courses now after you
Oh,
launched
sure.
that first course?
So yeah, so after the first course went up, you can really kind of make your own success by using the audience that you have already. So I had actually published a full tutorial on my blog about this before I posted the course. And because there was so much interest in the topic in general, people wanted to see it live and watch and go through the steps with me on video. And so that was really helpful. So then from there, when Skillshare teachers really start being successful in general is when you upload multiple classes, because, and I'll talk about this more a little bit with Creative Market too, is that once you have a presence and you have people enrolling for your class, they will get notifications when you post a new class, so then you already have a built-in audience both on your blog or your platform, as well as people on Skillshare who are following you and want to take more classes because they either like your teaching style or they like the topics that you're teaching. So I've also taught a class on how to draw a hand-lettered quote with minimal sketching, so that didn't do quite as well. But then my latest class was watercolor meets surface pattern design, and that was just two topics that really are popular, pretty popular in Skillshare right now between watercolor and repeating patterns, so that's done pretty well too.
That's
And
awesome.
basically, yeah, the ideas for those classes came from working with the Skillshare teacher resources.
Very cool. So I know that Skillshare reached out to you at first, but what have been the advantages of using Skillshare as opposed to hosting the course on your own website or going through a site like Teachable or Teachery?
Sure. So because Skillshare has a built-in audience, you have a higher chance of a bigger exposure and reaching a bigger audience who may or may not have heard of you in general. So when you're teaching an independent course, you're limited to your own reach and what kind of marketing plan that you're willing and able to do with your own newsletter and doing webinars and joint ventures and stuff like that. So, but with Skillshare, it's kind of like, oh, this platform already exists. People already have a lot of trust in the platform. So that's what makes it potential for success is higher there.
Yeah. And that's awesome because it seems like it goes hand in hand for you too. You said you had already shared a tutorial on your blog and saw that there was interest there. So then you took it into Skillshare. And the more people who are watching your Skillshare course, the more likely they're going to come back to your site. And the more people who are on your site, the more you can point them to Skillshare. So it's
Exactly.
kind of go hand in hand. And something else that might be neat, and this is just a thought that occurred to me, but to gauge interest, if you're planning on doing a bigger course that you want to host outside of Skillshare, to maybe take a piece of it and see how effective it is and how much interest you're able to get on Skillshare to judge
Yes.
and see if there might be more of an interest in it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great idea. And I feel like Skillshare really wants to help you succeed as a creative individual. So they don't frown upon you sending a newsletter to your people who are following you and saying, hey, like, if you enjoyed this class, I'm having one on my own site. They want to support you and they want to make sure that you succeed so that you'll come back. And, it's like a really nice mutual relationship that
Yeah.
way.
So that brings up another question too, because mailing lists are getting to be a big thing and people are beginning to see how effective they are for making sales.
Mm.
So for Skillshare, with the people who enroll in your classes, are you able to access their email addresses?
No, you're not able to access their email addresses, but what happens is you automatically, like whenever someone enrolls in your class, they will become your follower. So you have the ability to email them through Skillshare. So you can post a discussion on any one of your classes, kind of send a broadcast message, and you can check a box whether or not you want them to be, whether you want that discussion to be sent to your emails or your followers. So that will go directly in their inbox, but you basically have to ask them in that discussion, like, hey, maybe if you like this class, you can sign up for my newsletter.
Right. But that's great that you have access to reaching them and that they can start following along with you. And
Mm-hmm.
does the amount of followers that you have on Skillshare affect whether your classes are seen more? Is there a way
Absolutely.
to get more exposure that way too?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, when you post more than one class, you start to get an aggregate of followers. So people, if you have, say, 1,000 people who sign up for your first class, then you launch a second class and you have those 1,000 people kind of automatically be notified about your first class, and then maybe 500 people sign on. So you kind of just have this really quickly growing list every time you post a new class and you get new enrollments.
That's awesome. It's really
Yeah.
good to know. Are there any other tips that you would recommend for having success on Skillshare for those who are considering now posting or hosting a course on there?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of questions about this from friends who are interested in posting a class, and I find a lot of people are thinking about kind of basics of a program or something like that. But what I found is that the most successful courses are the ones with a very clear project outcome. So instead of like basics of Photoshop, you might want to say blog portrait photo in 5 easy steps or something like that. So that way people have a very clear expectation of what they're going to be getting out of the course, and not just kind of these loosey-goosey basics. Now, don't get me wrong, like there are a lot of really good basics courses on Skillshare. They tend to be, I think at this point they're a little bit older, but then they've been around for longer, but they're still, like the more project-based ones are really more powerful and more eye-catching for people who are looking for something to learn quickly.
Yeah, especially since anyone can post a course there, it seems like the broad overarching topics would kind of be inundated with that. But to have the very specific, clear-cut objective, people know what they're going to get. They're probably going to be more interested, and you'd probably see more enrollments, or from
Yeah,
experience.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other tips before we move on to Creative Market for Skillshare?
Not that I can think of right now. Maybe there will be some that come out through questions later.
Oh yeah, one more before we move on, and I might take one of the Skillshare questions that we already have up. But how often do you get paid out from Skillshare? Is it quarterly? Is it weekly? What does that look like?
Sure. Skillshare will send you payments every month on the 16th. So for January, I received my payment on February 16th, and that
Awesome.
keeps rolling. Mm-hmm.
That's really nice, because it might take a lot of work up front to develop the course, but once you get it up and running, then it's just promotion. So it's up, people can access it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I still refer people back to my class for, if I post a YouTube tutorial and they're like, I really want to learn how to make a font. I was like, well, hey, I have this class on Skillshare that you can just enroll in anytime, and people are happy to hop on to Skillshare and do that.
That's awesome. So for those of you who are interested, Skillshare could be a great platform for a very specific type of course to see whether or not you like teaching, to gauge interest in a topic, and to bring in some more passive income, which never hurts. And most of all,
Yeah, and
a larger audience.
Sure. And if anyone's interested in teaching a course on Skillshare, I'm happy to answer questions. I can also give referrals for to get in touch with those teacher helpers. So that would be good too.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and take the Skillshare question that's up. Feel free, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with Crowdcast, the platform we use for Elchats each week. Underneath, there's a question section, and you can ask questions there. You can also vote questions up. So if somebody asked a question already that you really want to hear answered, you can vote it up, and I'll see it more quickly to answer it. So let's see. Another Jen asks, does Skillshare own your course content if you go through them? So Jen,
They don't. Sure. If they don't own your course content per se, like you're still in charge of your content, you can take it down at any point. It's up to you to decide how much you want to have on there and for how long. But generally, no, I mean, they're pretty flexible. They're not out to kind of take your content and use it as their own.
Awesome. So could you take that content, if you chose to host it on your own site, could you take it down and move it to your own site, or do they have restrictions on that?
I'm actually not sure. I want to say that you can absolutely do that. I think, okay, so the hand letterer Sean West used to have a course on Skillshare, and I know that he would rather host it on his own site, on his own platform. So he's since taken his course down. The course is still there. You can see the preview, but nothing is accessible right now.
Gotcha. Good to know. Thank you. All
Sure.
right. We have one other one. I'm gonna go ahead and answer that too. So they asked, does Skillshare have a problem with you teaching on other platforms?
No, not at all. I've talked with Skillshare multiple times, and they want to know when you're going to post your next course, and I've told them like, hey, I'm working on something on my own, and they're really supportive of that. So they want you to succeed as a creative person in general. So they're not going to hold you back from teaching on other sites, or either independently or on another similar competitor site.
Awesome. Great. Okay, so with that being said, um, let's move on to Creative Market. So we talked
Sure.
about Skillshare for hosting courses, but in terms of um, you said you've developed fonts and patterns. So Creative Market is great for that. And for those who are unfamiliar with Creative Market, what is Creative Market?
Creative Market is a great place to buy graphic design resources and textures, things like Photoshop actions, Illustrator plugins, etc. And you can also buy all sorts of stuff that you might need to use in your creative business for graphic design.
So yes, and I've gone to Creative Market before to look for patterns and things like that. Not only fonts, but patterns and all sorts of creative stuff. They even for designers who are looking to make their portfolio look more professional and cohesive, they even have mock-ups that you can go and place like logos on top of and all sorts of great stuff. So if you haven't been to Creative Market yet, go hop over there and take a look at it. But even more so, consider thinking about selling on Creative Market. So, Jenn, how did you get started on Creative Market?
I got started on Creative Market after I created my first font. I was looking for a place to sell that. And I was already on Etsy selling some Blogger templates, which I've taken down since then. But I was looking for a more niche website to be able to sell that where the interest would be higher. So Creative Market was a really great solution for that.
Awesome. So, and just like you said, Creative Market is great if you don't know where to sell. So another great place to go and reach a wider audience who's looking specifically for what you might be offering. So, Jenn, what are the benefits to using Creative Market? I know I just kind of said it, but you might have more to add there of using a site like Creative Market.
Sure. Yeah, it's again the built-in audience, so it's the same idea as Skillshare. You have people who are already on Creative Market who have purchased credits through Creative Market and are looking for the newest resource or just something to help them with their business if they want to save time. Instead of making their own watercolor textures, they can purchase pre-made watercolor textures. So again, it's just people who are looking for exactly what you're creating. So it's kind of a nice way to filter all of the noise and find something on a platform that they know they can trust.
Yeah, that's great. So you said you started out selling a font. What did that process look like for getting it on Creative Market to begin with to start selling it?
Sure. So what's interesting about Creative Market is not anyone can just go on and open a shop. You have to have an existing digital product shop up somewhere. So at the time, I had both Etsy and e-commerce platform on my Squarespace blog. So I just directed that to them, or I sent them that link, and they're like, "Okay, this looks great," and go ahead and open up your shop. So that's how that starts. But once you're ready to open your shop, it's really easy. It's just like selling anything on Etsy or or a similar site. You basically upload preview images, you type out your description and your keywords, and then you attach your zip file and determine the price, determine the categories, and then you're ready to go pretty much.
That's awesome. So what does that approval process look like? Do you just submit a form and then they get back with you, or how does that work?
Yeah, if you go on creativemarket.com, there's a link at the bottom and it says, do you want to open your own shop? And you fill out a form and they'll get back to you pretty quick.
That's awesome. So once you get it up and you start selling, do they go through a process similar to what Skillshare does where they share the most recent additions, or how do you get started getting your products in front of more people?
Sure. So there are a couple ways to have your products filter to the top. One is to gain followers. So when you upload a project or when you upload a product, people have the opportunity to like that resource. They have the opportunity to follow you and view your profile or shop page. So once you get followers and you upload a new product, they'll see that in their feed. And then from there, you want to just make sure that you're uploading consistently, because the more consistent products you upload on a regular basis, the more people are going to see your shop and the more exposure your shop is going to get. Also, the more sales and the more likes and reviews that a product gets, the quicker it'll filter to the top. So if you visit Creative Market on any given day and go into a certain category like fonts or patterns, you'll see the most popular resources there.
Awesome. So once you start bringing in sales, is Creative Market more of a subscription service like Skillshare, or are you getting a percent? Do you set the price and then you get a percentage of what you make, or does Creative Market take a percentage out of it? What does the pricing look like?
Sure. So if anyone's sold on Etsy, it's a little bit different in that you pay a listing fee. Once your product is up on Creative Market, it's there. Every time you make a sale, they take out, I believe it's 30 to 35%. So the commission's pretty high, but it's just a trade-off as opposed to selling on Etsy, where they charge an upfront listing fee and you have to renew the listing, etc.
Right. And you're kind of paying for the exposure too, because you're using their audience.
Sure.
Which is the great advantage to using Creative Market over hosting it yourself and then trying to drive traffic back. So when you set up your shop account, can you put links there to your website as well? How do you recommend driving traffic back to your own site and growing your audience that way?
Sure. So once you have your profile up on Creative Market, you have an opportunity to fill out your avatar, a description, a link back to your site, and you can also link to popular social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, I believe Dribbble, which again is the portfolio site. And I think that might be it, but they give you the opportunity to put your social media platforms out there. Maybe Instagram is one of them too.
Okay, awesome. And so when you said people can follow along with you just like they can on Skillshare or even on Etsy, and with Skillshare, you said you can send out the discussion and that's how they get notified, and they get notified with new courses. What does that look like for Creative Market in terms of reaching the people who are following along with you?
The followers on Creative Market are a little less flexible. So once someone follows you on Creative Market, they might just be notified of when you post a new product, but you won't have that ability to get in their email inboxes and say, hey, like I have this new product. So it's a little bit less in your face, I want to say, than if someone follows you on Skillshare.
Awesome. So just like I did with Skillshare, what are some tips for succeeding on Creative Market? What types of content do you need to be sharing on Creative Market to see success and a great return?
So I know this is a little bit not very specific, but one of the things that Creative Market always says, and one of the things that, when you're creating stuff in general, one of the rules is you want to make something that you love, because when you make something that you love, that'll show through in the work and the presentation, and then people who have a similar taste to you or a similar aesthetic will see that, and then they'll be wanting to purchase that as well. So that's one of the things. Another is to upload consistently. You don't want to just upload 20 products and then let your shop sit there. It's better to kind of leak them out in a pattern so that your shop kind of gets to be notified. Your followers get notified when you upload something new. And then from there, you can send things out to your audience through your own platform. The other really great thing about Creative Market is they do offer an affiliate program. So if someone links to one of your products, they can, if someone does a roundup on their website of like 10 great fonts from Creative Market, they'll get a kickback from posting the link on their website to your shop. And vice versa, you can do the same thing where you might have a list of 10 patterns that you like on your own blog, and you might post like one of your own and then like 9 others. And it's just good karma all around.
Yeah. So that's interesting too, because if on your site you have a link to your goods on Creative Market, could you just use that affiliate link? So anybody who's coming from your site, if they end up purchasing it on Creative Market, then you're getting the money you would make anyway, but also the affiliate, or do they?
Yeah, no, you can absolutely do that, and you should be, because when you're promoting your own stuff, you want to make sure to maximize that, and they don't mind, because then they get loyal customers from there.
Yeah. So if you do sell from Creative Market, post it on your website, use the affiliate link, because you'll get more money that way. So
Absolutely.
good to know. I like that. Also, what would you recommend? And I meant to ask this on Skillshare too. What kind of graphics do well on Skillshare and Creative Market? Because people are seeing all of these courses at once, especially if they're popping up within like a feed. So what would you recommend for catching people's attention through visuals on these sites?
That's an interesting question, because it really depends on your own aesthetic. I don't want people to feel like they have to fit within a certain aesthetic in order to succeed. It really is just a matter of harnessing your own style and then presenting it in the most professional way possible. So of course there are a lot of things that are really popular in general based on whatever niche you're looking at. Like for my niche, I tend to post things that are very watercolor heavy, brush lettering, and kind of like doodly illustrations, I want to say.
Right.
But people do really well with retro themes, and more clean cut fonts. So it really depends on what you want to be posting, but just make sure that you're consistent in your own style. That way people know what to expect from you. And that goes with Skillshare as well. Like, you want to make sure that you're posting things that you already create and that people know you for.
Yeah. I think too, do you find it helpful to mock up some things too? So like to show the finished product, or to show like, if you're lettering, like to show as you're lettering, like get a photo of it, or visuals like that help people better understand what they're going to get out of your course. Do you experiment with those kinds of things when you're posting images?
Yes, absolutely. And what's funny is people like to see the product in action too. So a lot of times I'll try my best at preview images, but then I'll also take the time and show the product in use in a video, and I'll post that video on YouTube, which then that ends up feeding back and forth, because people who find my product on Creative Market might say, oh, this is how I might use that. And then people who are on YouTube looking for a specific resource might say, oh, I really like that resource. So that kind of feeds traffic both ways.
Yeah.
And it's a really good resource in general, because then you don't have to answer questions about like, how do I use this resource? Because it's already there.
Yes. Good to know. We have a question that just came in on Creative Market from Kinsey, and she says, have any opinions, or do you have any opinions or tips about the new licensing on Creative Market? So what does licensing look like on Creative Market?
The licensing on Creative Market has changed a lot recently. They originally had a simple license for everybody, which means basically that you can use it for yourself or for one client. And then they offered an extended license, which means if someone were to buy a pattern from me, they could sell it on their own product. I'm a little bit fuzzy on all of the licensing, simply because I'm not overly concerned about it at this point in my career, but it's just important to make sure to know and keep in touch with the licensing. Creative Market does a really good job of emailing you and letting you know what the new policies are. I know some sellers have taken down their shop because of the new licensing, but I certainly don't know exactly what their arguments were, and I haven't looked into it a ton.
Yeah, especially when it changes. Now, you said Skillshare is very encouraging of you sharing your work elsewhere or using other sites. What about Creative Market? Do they have guidelines as far as what you can share, or whether you can post those resources elsewhere?
You can post them anywhere, and like I said before, you have to have a shop in order to open up a shop. So they don't mind if you're going to have your products both on your Creative Market account as well as your personal website, maybe on Etsy too. They don't mind.
That's awesome. Really good to know. All right, we have another question on Skillshare. So it is, how do you differentiate your class or product from others on Skillshare or Creative Market? So yes, how do you make yours unique or make yours stand out among all of the other resources on both platforms?
I think consistency is probably the key, especially for things like Creative Market. There are a lot of things that overlap on Creative Market. Like right now, brush fonts are huge. So it really is just a matter of taking the time and crafting a really professional product, making sure your description is really good, making sure the SEO is going to be really good, your keywords are good. You can also, you really just want to go the extra mile and make sure that your preview images show a really good story of what it'd be like to use the product in different ways. You want to make sure to look at the competition and see what they're doing, but also not model your business after the competition. You want to be able to do your own thing.
Right. I think that's actually next week's Ellechat is on originality and how to stand out in a saturated market. And one of the things I think that really makes you stand out is just being different and staying true to your own aesthetic. So think about your strengths and what you do really well and what differentiates you from other people out there. And highlight that. So with Jenn, her illustrations are awesome and she has a very distinct style. And so I can see something from Jenn and know right away that it's from her. So when I see her brush lettering pop up on Instagram, I know that it's hers. And if I want to achieve that brush lettering, I know where to go. So I think developing your own aesthetic and really honing in on what makes you different, and not trying to mimic other people is huge for standing out. Would you agree, Jenn?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly very well put.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I think it's Majeska Designs. I hope I'm saying it right.
I recognize that name.
Oh,
Hello.
do you? Good. I'm
Yeah.
so glad. All right. So Cindy asks, what platform do you use to offer courses on your own site? So if you host on Creative Market and you've seen some success on Creative Market and you maybe want to take them onto your own site, Jenn, have you done that before?
For courses,
Yes.
I've launched one course on my own. I ended up going with Teachable, which used to be Fedora. So that's been pretty good. They are really helpful. The success on my own course has been not as good as I was hoping, but I definitely like the platform and I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I use the same one. I've used it for my visual marketing course. And again, you're pointing the traffic to it. So it's not like Skillshare where you have an audience of people who may not be following along with you, but still come
Mhm.
across your course. So you're the one pointing traffic, which is a little harder, but it allows you to go into modules and do all that too. So there are advantages to both, but definitely um, I started out actually, and maybe we can talk about this for a little while since we have some extra time. But I
Yeah.
started out on Etsy when I first started freelancing. And it was really helpful because I didn't have the audience outside of friends and family to start buying prints. So once all my friends and family that I could tell about my business, once I had already told them and bugged them about it, I needed to keep spreading the word. And so having a third party site to reach a wider audience was really helpful for getting started and just to see what the process looked like. So, like Jenn said, if you're just starting out teaching, it would be really helpful to go over to Skillshare and teach a very specific class so that you can see what all the work that goes into creating a course,
Mhm.
and see the interest before you host one on your own and put all that work into it and then are disappointed with the results. Um, so
Yes,
would you
that's a
agree
really
with that,
good,
Jenn?
that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. And I was just talking about this a little earlier with someone else before, is like when you're teaching on Skillshare or deciding to teach on Skillshare, if you're not sure whether or not you want to use a third-party platform, it's a really good way of seeing if you even like teaching or if people are going to enjoy your teaching style. Like you can certainly do it on YouTube, but Skillshare is going to be a good way to see within your target audience who's going to enroll in your class and what type of engagement you're going to get. So it's a really good way to go for new teachers.
Yeah, and the great thing too, and I know with Etsy they had a plugin, and I'm not sure, but this is something I definitely want to know from you, Jenn. For Creative Market and for Skillshare. But I know with Etsy, they had a plugin to where you could make it look like your Etsy shop was a part of your site. So you take the little code that they would give you and put it on a page of your website, and it would look like a normal shop. And if anybody clicked on an item, it would take them over to your Etsy store. So you can still have your products on your site, which is great when you're just starting, so you can send traffic that way, but you're also getting the exposure of that third-party site to host a course or products. So Jenn, do they have an option for making it look like a part of your site, either on Skillshare or Creative Market?
So let me answer for Skillshare. They don't have that right now. They want you to use the Skillshare platform, but what they will suggest, and what I've done in the past, is you can take your teaser video and upload that to YouTube or your own site. So that'll just generate traffic from your own site back to Skillshare. I'm not actually sure about the Creative Market if they have a plugin yet, but you can certainly mock that up on your site and have it point to your Creative Market shop with some creative image arrangement and CSS and things like that.
Yeah, it's good to know. But yeah, so, and this goes along with the third-party site. Until you said that you had an Etsy shop too, it's like, oh, this would be great to talk about, Jenn. So I hope you don't mind. I'm throwing her off with this. But so tell me about Etsy and you using that site, and whether you suggest using it or not when you first get started.
It depends on what sort of products you're looking to sell. So if you're selling digital products that are going to be graphic design resources, I would absolutely recommend Creative Market, just because that's what that niche is. For Etsy, there's a lot more flexibility. You can sell planners on there. You can sell printable worksheets. You can even sell little tidbits of courses. Like, there's a whole plethora of digital products that you can sell on Etsy. So it really is just a matter of doing your research on both platforms and seeing where your products may fit in better. The other thing is you could potentially list it on both, see which one takes off and which one does better, and then go with that one exclusively, or even just keep them on both too.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say with Creative Market. If they don't mind you selling elsewhere, it might be helpful to post it on Creative Market and post it on your own site and have both. I know a lot of people have an Etsy shop and a shop on their website because they've already developed a following on Etsy and got their start there. But then now people know them by name and come to their website. So it might be an extra step to keep up with both, but also helpful at the same time too. So it's not mutually exclusive. So what did you sell on Etsy when you first started?
When I first started, I was selling Blogger templates, and I only had a couple, but that was my main source. And I was impressed with how well those templates did. I mean, that was before responsive websites were even really huge. So it was just kind of static templates for Blogger. But I mean, the interest was certainly there for people who were looking for Blogger templates on Etsy. So it just is a matter of seeing what people are looking for and where.
Yeah, I actually started by selling prints and posted a ton of prints to Etsy. Realized I didn't really love creating prints full time. I still have some in the library, but it was great to get started. And I was stunned by the number of buyers I got who were all over the country, in other countries even, who wouldn't have heard of me otherwise, but because I went through Etsy, saw my work and purchased it, and I had return customers come from it too, and I was under a different name then, but Etsy was great for getting started and just figuring out what I liked. So if you have a font that you've created that's just sitting there, go ahead and put it on Creative Market and see how it does. Start developing there. So so Jenn, what have you done since then? Do you still use Etsy, or has it phased out and you're just focusing on Skillshare and Creative Market at the moment?
Sure. Actually, I'm kind of in a upward. I've kind of been throwing everything up in the air and seeing how it falls back down, because I have experienced success on Etsy. I have experienced success on Creative Market and Skillshare, but I want to see what works best. And I'm also, my most exciting recent news was my getting started with brush lettering ebook too. So especially with a baby on the way, I want to see what's working best and what I can really focus on in order to get the most return. So I'm certainly not against exploring Etsy again or focusing on Creative Market or Skillshare in the future. It just is going to be a matter of experimenting and seeing what works best. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and I think everybody kind of goes through, at least I've seen this personally and seen it through a lot of other people. You go through kind of an experimental phase, figuring out what you like to do, what you like to sell, what works best. So these kinds of sites are great too because there's no huge commitment to it. You create something like a font or a pattern or even stock images, something like that, to post on Creative Market and see how it does, and then create a little course on maybe even how you develop that font and put it on Skillshare, and just get creative with what you're offering and see what sticks and what people respond to before you make a long-term commitment to it.
Yeah, and as creative entrepreneurs, we have to be flexible anyway. So staying nimble and seeing what works one year versus another year is a really good mindset to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have any more questions at the moment, and I don't know if I overlooked anything. Jen, do you have anything else to add? We might end a little bit early tonight, but do you have anything else to add on why to choose Skillshare and Creative Market over hosting things on your own at the outset? Would you recommend them now after using them for some time now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting because people aren't sure whether or not to use Skillshare or third-party sites in general because they feel like it's not really pointing back to their own website. But having worked with Skillshare, having worked with Creative Market and Etsy, I think it is important to help build your brand to do it through a third-party site.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely to get your name out there and get your products out there, like I said, with that experimental phase, point people back. And then as you start to grow, you can always take it off and put it on your own site. But even for myself, sometimes I get a creative itch, like I just want to create this for fun, and I could just go ahead and put it up on Creative Market or Skillshare or something like that. Do
Absolutely,
something on a smaller scale. So just to stay creative. I know Jamie, who was on 2 weeks ago from Spruce Road, has her own like creative time set aside on Wednesdays to just do a fun project. So it might even be fun to do a fun project and just put it up on Skillshare or Creative Market.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thank you so much, Jen. We'll jump off a few minutes early. The replay will be up right after this too. So if you have questions, I pop on to these crowdcasts every now and then and answer them too. And I'm sure Jen could look back to answer any questions for those of you who are watching the replay. But thank you so much, Jen, for jumping on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. And thank you guys for joining in tonight. I hope to see you next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about originality and how to stand out in a very saturated industry, in a crowded industry. And actually, I am having another webinar in the meantime, which is this Saturday at 12:30 Eastern Time to talk about Squarespace. I just made some updates to my own Squarespace site, and I've put a lot of time into navigation. I switched themes, which was huge for me and ended up being surprisingly easy. So I'm going to walk you through what that looks like, how you can set up your Squarespace site, and more importantly, how you can customize it and make it set apart or stand apart from others in your industry. So if you're interested in that, you can actually click on my face. It should be up at the top. You can see my account. You can see past Elechats there, and you can see the upcoming Elechats to come and Saturday's webinar. Or you can go to the Ellen Company website and find them on our Ellechat page. Thank you all so much for joining in tonight. Hope to see you in another Ellechat soon. Have a good one.